Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. So I noticed something today when I was starting this stream. Let me show you. We are on day 60 of the OJ trial. Day 60. That's awesome. We're doing great. But my goal was to be at least 100 by today. And we're only at 89. We're on the 89th video, not the 100th video, which is fine because life gets in the way and OJ trial's not going anywhere. I mean, this was created 8 years ago. So we have time. We don't need to rush. But I do want to try to catch up a little bit if I can. So my plan today is to finish this video, which is an hour and 15 minutes long, although we already watched 3 minutes of it, and finish this video today. Finish 90. So this is going to be a long one. This is going to be a little over 2 hours today, which I guess is fine because my stream ended early. All right. Thanks for watching this trial with me, guys.
No more than 10 hairs at this point. If the prosecution at some point feels that they are in...
I am wrong. No, I'm not wrong. I didn't click it. There we go. All right, so we already watched 28 minutes of this. So we have like 45 minutes to go, and then 47 minutes for the next video. That makes more sense.
And what were you able to observe from that location?
I was able to observe the beeper and the keys that Officer Risky had told me about that we could not see very well from the other location. And I could also see the glove and the hat from that location a little bit better.
And who was with you at that time?
Officer Risky, Detective Furman, and myself.
We have RP in the left-hand corner. This was 46A, Your Honor.
All right, 46A.
Your Honor, this is P number 59, and you'll need to cut the video.
Can you see in this photograph, sir, the area that you described where you stood to observe the scene from the north side of the gate?
Yes, I can.
And can we... If you would direct the pointer to the area.
It's on the other side of the fence. Right back up in that area there. Well, should be over more towards that tree is at. No, right there.
Right there?
Right there.
Could you please put the initials RP? And this would be 59A? B?
59B.
B. Do that on the back.
John, you didn't miss anything. I didn't stream OJ yesterday because I had to work. And guess how many customers I got while we should have been watching OJ? Zero. Zero. It was so slow.
Now, Your Honor, this is Peoples 43A. And again, the feet will need to be cut on this photo.
Do you see this, you see what's depicted in this photograph? You're looking at your monitor, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
And can you tell us, sir, if you can see the paw prints that you were earlier referring to?
Yes, I do.
Now those, you see splotches on this, of blood, what appears to be blood on this walkway? I'm going to circle it if you can.
You know, if that dog just would have stayed inside, this trial would have lasted a year less.
Can't see it, you can step down.
Yes, I do.
And another one over here? And
Yes.
up here? All right. You were there, sir. Tell us what they appeared to, what they looked like to you.
They were just pools of blood.
What did you do after you observed from the location north of the victims?
We were told that you could get a better look.
Sustained. What did you do, not what you were told?
Walked around southbound on Bundy, and then walked westbound on Dorothy, and then northbound into the alley to the rear of the residence at 875 South Bundy.
Now, who was there? Who went on this walk?
Officer Risky, Sergeant Rossi, Mark Furman, and myself. And there may have been a Sergeant Kuhn, but I'm not sure.
And did you walk into the alley then?
Yes?
Where did you go next?
Walked northbound in the alley to the rear of 875 South Bundy.
And where did you enter? Did you enter through the garage, or how did you go in?
When we originally entered into the house, we went through the garage.
Now, before you entered the garage, did you make any observations outside in the driveway?
Yes, I did.
What did you see?
I noticed a Jeep parked in the driveway with the passenger door semi-ajar. Looked like it hadn't been shut all the way. I noticed some change in the driveway and also a couple of droplets of blood.
P52.
Do you recognize what's shown there, sir?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That's the rear of 875 South Bundy.
Now, did Officer Risky point out to you that the garage door was now open?
Yes, he did.
Did he explain to you in what condition he originally found the garage door when he first appeared on the scene?
Yes, he did.
And was it open or closed when it was...
Sustained.
Did he explain to you how the garage door came to be opened?
Yes.
Now, where, if you can recall, did you see the change and the blood drop on the driveway?
It was to the left of the Jeep, I believe.
Your Honor, exhibit number 48K.
Excuse me, to the left of the Jeep as we face it now?
Yes.
No, give me the perspective. Okay, you've seen that photograph. I'm going to get a perspective shot for you.
This is 48J,
And 48J. And now a close-up on the photograph.
48I.
Now, do you recognize the close-ups and the perspective shot of what you've just seen here?
Yes.
And what is that?
That's the change in the blood drop that I observed by the Jeep.
Did you make those observations before going in through the garage?
Yes, I did.
So your first entry was in through the garage, is that right? Or was it through the rear gate?
The first entry I went in was through the rear gate with a Sergeant Rossi. He wanted to show me something.
And when you walked through the rear gate, who went with you?
Just myself and Sergeant Rossi.
And what happened to Officer Risky and Detective Furman?
They stayed out in the driveway by the Jeep.
What happened when you went through the rear gate with Sergeant Rossi?
We walked eastbound a portion of the way until he pointed out some faded footprints, what appeared to be faded footprints, and then said he had not gone any farther than that. And I said, well, let's go back out and get the rest of them. And we went back out. We didn't go any farther.
Okay, those footprints, how were you able to see them?
With the aid of a flashlight, Sergeant Rossi had one and I had one.
Did they appear to be, what color did they appear to be?
The footprints appeared to be in a red stain.
They appear to be blood to you?
Overall, he's a homicide detective. You can answer that question.
It appeared to be a red stain that resembled blood, yes.
Now, before you entered through the rear gate, sir, was anything pointed out to you to be careful of?
Well, I was pointed out some blood that was on the top rung of the rear gate and also on the bottom rung of the rear gate, and then also at a latch on the rear gate.
And so, did you touch the gate?
No, I did not.
And was there any other blood pointed out to you near that area of the rear gate?
I believe there was another drop of blood or two in the vicinity of that rear gate
On the ground?
on the ground.
This is Exhibit 48, I believe H. No, I'm sorry, 48G.
No, give me your perspective.
48, I believe F.
Okay. You see the marker in the photograph,
Yes, I do.
and the gate that is depicted in this photograph. Which gate is that?
That's the gate that leads out to the alley at the rear of 875 Bundy.
The marker that you see there, is that a location that you were discussing just now when you talked about a blood drop on
Yes.
the ground?
Yes,
Was that pointed out to you before you went through the rear gate?
after I went through the rear gate.
And did you avoid stepping on it?
Yes, I did.
Were you using your flashlight the entire time that you walked down the walkway?
Yes, I was.
You indicated then that Sergeant Rossi, you got to the point just before you were at the bloody shoe prints on the walkway, then you turned around.
And we returned back to the alley, yes.
Then what happened?
I then entered the residence through the garage with Officer Risky leading the way and Detective Furman and I following him, and Sergeant Rossi stayed outside.
And what did you do when you got into the residence? First of all, back up. Let me ask you, how did you get into the residence?
Walked through the open garage door and walked to the right side of a white sports car that was parked in the driveway, or in the garage, and then went through the door that leads from the garage into the house.
And what did you see when you got inside the house?
The first thing I noticed was some stairs that led up to another level in the house, and we started to ascend those stairs.
And tell us what you observed when you first entered the door.
The first into the door, Officer Risky pointed out a ice cream cup that was positioned on a banister about 4 feet inside the residence from the back door. And he also pointed out a spoon that had fallen or been misplaced or something that was to the left of that banister lying on one of the steps leading down into another room.
Okay. What else did you see?
At that time, just the ice cream and the spoon.
Okay. And then what?
Walked up into the kitchen area of the residence, walked through the kitchen area, into the living room, out the living room, and to a front door that I was told that had been found open.
Sustain. Curious to disregard the last comment that
Okay,
he was told the door was found open.
You went upstairs and you went through a kitchen area?
Yes.
Now, what was the purpose of your going into the house at this time?
Going into the house because Officer Risky was going to show me a better location to view the crime scene from.
And did you come out, when you came to the front door, was it open or closed?
It was open.
And were you informed of the manner in which it was first found by the first officer on the scene, Officer Risky?
Yes.
And then you walked through the open door?
Yes.
And what did you see?
Saw footprints that appeared to be going in a westbound direction, away from the actual crime scene and the main crime scene, past the front door and along the alley or along the walkway that I had walked partially up to before.
Okay. Did those shoe prints angle in towards the front door at
No.
any time?
Or will.
No.
They appeared to go straight past it.
Yes.
And how many of them did you observe, sir? If you recall.
I don't recall how many I saw.
Okay. How many how many sets of shoe prints did you see?
Different sets.
Mm-hmm. Different sets.
They appeared to all be the same.
One set of shoe prints?
Yes.
Now, did you see any shoe prints down between the bodies of Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown?
Down on the steps is the only place I observed them. I didn't get that close to actually observe if there was any around the bodies.
Your Honor, you're going to need to cut the feed. This is 45B.
All right.
Okay, do you see one of the shoe prints that you saw that night from the vantage point of the top of the landing?
Yes, I do.
And if you can see it on the screen, I'm going to point it out with the laser. Is that?
Yes.
That's one of them? Okay. Move up. Next one up.
Okay, 45C.
Do you recall seeing what I'm circling right now, if you can look?
Yes.
And what were did you see those that night?
Yes, I did.
What did they appear to be?
Footprints. Some type of red stain that appeared to be blood.
Okay. I don't understand. I'm just really confused. Hi, Kelly. They have pictures of footprints. They have pictures of the crime scene. They have pictures of the footprints. So why do they have to ask every single witness, do you recall seeing this? How many were there? How far away from the body? They have pictures of it. So why? What is this? How does this prove O.J. Simpson is the killer? Just show the dang jury the picture and move on. I don't understand. I'm trying to figure out legally why they're doing it.
Bare footprints?
No, shoe prints, I'm sorry.
45D.
Do you see what I'm circling on the screen now, sir?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing these shoe prints?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And were those at the top of the landing, sir?
Yes, they were.
And who pointed them out to you?
Officer Risky?
And after he pointed them out to you, did you go over and step in them?
No, I did not.
You avoided them?
Yes, I did.
Did either yourself, Detective Furman, or Officer Risky go and step in those shoe prints?
No, we did not.
Next.
45E.
Can you see what I'm circling here, sir?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing these things that I'm circling that night?
Well, these appeared to be the same shoe prints leading westbound out that walkway.
45F.
And once again, you see what I'm circling?
Yes.
Same thing, those bloody shoe prints?
Yes.
You saw them that night?
Yes.
45G.
Were you able to ever examine them closely, sir, by shining your flashlight and looking closely at these shoe prints?
I never examined them closely, no.
Did you ever see one as close up as you're seeing on the screen here?
No.
Now, from the vantage point of the top of the landing, were you able to see the crime scene area where the victims and the evidence that you've described previously was more clearly?
Yes.
And after making those observations from the top of the landing, what did you do?
I then followed Officer Risky westbound out the north pathway to the north of the residence to the rear gate and exited out the rear gate.
As you did so, did Officer Risky point anything out to you?
Yes, he pointed out droplets of what appeared to be blood and also these footprints until they faded out.
Now, did Officer Risky explain to you what he had done when he went inside the house earlier?
I don't understand your question.
Did Officer Risky tell you what he had done at the scene before you arrived?
As far as the inside of the house?
Yes.
Yes.
Did he tell you about going through the house and what he had done with any persons he found inside?
Overruled.
Yes.
All right, you said you walked down the walkway. He pointed out blood drops to you.
Yes.
Did you observe those blood drops next to any of the bloody shoe prints that you've described to us?
Yes.
And to what side of the bloody shoe prints were they?
To the left.
P48A.
48A.
Okay, you can see the item 112
Yes.
and the area I'm circling right there. Is that one of those bloody shoe prints you were talking about?
Yes.
All right, and the item 112 close up?
P48B.
Do you recall seeing blood drops, and that appears to be to the left of the shoe print that you earlier described?
Yes.
Sure. With the report.
For why? She's showing him pictures. For why? Why do you need a sidebar? I mean, that's a nice blue, though. So I remember when I showed that video of the evidence that they had, there was one of his shoes. They turned it upside down so you could see the bottom, and they looked similar, but that could have just been me making things up in my head while I was looking at the evidence. I don't know.
All right, thank you, counsel. You may proceed.
Objection was overruled, Your Honor.
Yes, it is. Proceed. Sometimes they're sustained,
Sometimes they're overruled.
sometimes they're overruled.
P48A.
Now, are you able to see in this photograph all of the bloody shoe prints that you were describing?
I don't see all of them, no.
How many of the bloody shoe prints that you described are you able to see in this photograph?
I can only see in this photograph maybe one.
The one that we've earlier circled at the bottom of the photograph?
That's right.
Just so you know, I have been trying to find a way to pop up the evidence as they say it, and there's no way. I don't think it's... So this is evidence P48A. I've tried to look a couple times to see if I can get a list of the evidence, and I can't. That would be perfect if I could just pull this evidence up for you. as they're doing it. But maybe it's better that we don't see everything, right?
As you walk down the walkway, were you using your flashlight, sir?
Yes,
Officer Risky was leading,
yes,
and was he pointing these things out to you?
yes.
Where was Detective Furman?
I believe Detective Furman was following me. I think it was Risky, then myself, and then Officer Furman.
But it was all three of you.
Yes, we were walking in single file.
Did you avoid the blood drops and the shoe prints?
Sustained.
Did you step in the blood drops and the shoe prints?
No,
And did you exit through the rear gate?
yes, I did.
What happened next? Oh, let me back up, sir. Let me ask you something. Did those bloody shoe prints continue all the way down the walkway to the rear gate?
No, they did not.
Did they stop at some point?
That is sad.
Oh, well, briefly.
I can't recall the exact location where they faded out, but it was not quite halfway, I don't believe, between the front and the back. I don't recall where the last one that I saw was.
By the time you exited through the rear gate, were you able to see any more bloody shoe prints?
No,
Did you see any in the rear driveway?
no.
What did you do after you exited through the rear gate?
We re-entered, I re-entered the house, and Officer Risky walked us through the residence to give us a basic layout of the residence.
Now, at that point, did you go through all of the rooms?
Yes,
Did you go back through the kitchen area?
yes.
Tell us what you saw.
Went back through the kitchen area. I didn't observe anything at that time. Then we went into the living room area, and I noticed some candles on a table.
Were they lit?
Yes,
Were these, do you remember how big these candles were?
I don't know how big they were, no.
But they were still burning.
Yes,
And where is the living room in relation to the kitchen?
the living room's in the front portion of the house. The kitchen would be more or less in the middle of the house. And I think there's a dining area of some type between the kitchen and the living room.
And after you looked in the living room and the kitchen, sir, did you see any evidence of ransacking?
No, I didn't.
Did you see any blood?
No, I didn't.
Did you see any leaves tracked inside the house?
No,
Were there leaves outside the house around the bodies of the victims?
yes,
Did you see, let's strike that. Where did you go next?
I then went upstairs into the master bedroom where I observed the television on and a bed unmade, and then went into a master bathroom where I noticed a couple of candles also on a bench type area behind the bathtub. I believe it was west of the bathtub. Then exited that master bathroom and walked down another hallway into two rooms that I was told was the rooms of the children.
And in those locations, sir, did you see any signs of a struggle or fight?
No,
Did you see drawers pulled open?
no,
Did you see any blood?
no,
Did you see any items of jewelry or property thrown on the ground?
no.
And what'd you do next?
Then exited the residence.
And who was with you at this time?
Officer Risky and Detective Furman and myself.
And how did you exit?
Through the garage door, out the garage, back into the alley.
And who did you see when you got out of the house?
When I exited the residence and walked to the alley, I was met by my commanding officer, Lieutenant Frank Spangler.
Was there anybody with him?
There was a couple policemen standing there with him. I think a short time after that, Captain Connie Dial showed up.
Was Sergeant Rossi back there as well?
Yes, he was.
Now, Lieutenant Spangler, is he your direct boss?
Yes, he is.
And did you receive some information at that time, sir, concerning who would be handling this case?
Yes, I did.
Who'd you get that from?
Sergeant Rossi.
And what did you learn?
I learned that I was supposed to turn this case over to robbery homicide as per Chief Frankel's.
Who's Chief Frankel?
He is the chief of West Bureau. He is the one step above Commander Bushy.
And so it was Chief Frankel's order that the case be handed over?
Sustained.
I'm sorry?
Sustained.
After you received that information, what did you do?
I then made a telephone call on my cellular phone to Detective Headquarters Division, which is the central detective facility for the Los Angeles Police Department during morning watch, and asked that they put me in touch with Captain Gartland, who is the commanding officer of Robbery Homicide Division.
And did you speak to Captain Gartland?
Yes, I did.
And how was it you were making these phone calls, sir?
On a cellular telephone?
You had it with you?
Yes.
And after speaking to Captain Gartland, what did you do?
Then either made or received another phone call from a Lieutenant John Rogers, who also worked Robbery Homicide Division, and was informed at that time, actually Captain,
Sustained. What did you do, not what you were told? Next question.
You were informed by who, sir? You were told something by who?
Lieutenant Rogers, John Rogers.
And based on what he told you, what did you do?
Waited for another phone call.
Did you get another phone call?
Yes.
From?
We got a call back from John Rogers, Lieutenant Rogers.
Did you have another conversation with him?
Yes.
Who is Lieutenant Rogers, sir?
Lieutenant Rogers is one of the lieutenants that works out of Robbery Homicide Division that's in charge of the Homicide Special or Homicide Major Unit.
And the Homicide Major or Homicide Special Unit is what?
It's two entities out of Robbery Homicide Division that handle specialized homicide cases.
So those are detectives that handle specialized homicide cases?
Yes.
And is Lieutenant Rogers, he was their boss?
He was their supervisor, yes.
Supervisor. All right, and did you say Lieutenant Rogers called you back?
Yes.
And did you give him some information?
Yes.
What was that?
I informed him of the information I had received about the double homicides and who may be involved in the double homicides as far as Nicole Brown Simpson, and that she was the ex-wife or current wife of O.J. Simpson, and that Captain Gartland requested that his unit take it over.
And what were you given some instruction at that time?
Yes.
And what was that? This just explains.
Overall.
I was informed at that time that that investigation was no longer my responsibility, that it was now going to be handled and investigated by Robbery Homicide Division, and we were to do no more further action at that scene.
And after having received that information, sir, what did you do?
I walked back into the residence and informed Detective Furman, and I believe there was a police officer with him, that the case now belonged to Robbery Homicide. It was no longer our investigative responsibility, and that we were going to leave the residence and go back out to Dorothy and Bundy and wait the arrival of the Robbery Homicide detectives.
So you notified the uniformed officer and Detective Furman who were inside the house?
Yes.
And did they then come out with you?
Yes.
And where did you go?
I walked back southbound in the alley to Dorothy, and then back out to Dorothy and Bundy, where the police cars were parked and the other supervisors were standing around.
So at that point, was there anyone left in the scene?
Not in the crime scene itself, no. The perimeter was still established.
And by the perimeter, you mean?
We had officers north and south of Bundy, and we had them on north and south of the alley, protecting the crime scene, that no one would enter that location other than police officers.
So why did you do that?
To the integrity of the crime scene, it was no longer our responsibility. It was best for us to now leave the crime scene, go back out and wait for their arrival and see if they had any instructions on what they wanted us to do, since it was now their case.
So what were your duties at that point with respect to the crime scene at 875 South Bundy?
My responsibilities at that time ceased, as all of West LA detectives ceased. It was no longer our responsibility to do anything about that crime scene.
Nothing? You could just walk away and leave it?
Well, we weren't going to walk away and leave it. We were going to wait for the arrival of the robbery homicide detectives to give them the information that we had, give them the notes that Mark Furman had taken, and have a short discussion with them about what we had seen, what we had done, so they could have their, be brought up to date. But as far as actually investigating anything at the crime scene, that was finished.
Did you have any duty to keep it secure while you were waiting for them?
It was always secure.
While you were waiting for them?
Yes.
Did you... Can you tell us, sir, why it is that you stopped doing any work or any investigating at that scene while you were waiting for the robbery homicide detectives to appear?
Overruled.
Well, because of the integrity of the crime scene. When we walked through the crime scene and we were taking notes and doing things, it was our investigation. We were preparing to take part. We were preparing to do things. At the time it was taken away from me, that was all ceased because it was now going to be under the direction of another homicide unit who may work a little differently than I do, or a little differently than the detective who was there doing it. They should be able to start at the beginning of their crime scene investigation and take it from there.
Now, is that an established procedure or policy? Is that a routine thing? When a new set of detectives is assigned to a scene, that the first detectives on the scene stop all work?
It all depends on the timing. If we had already been into it for an hour or two, then no, it wouldn't have happened that way. But since we had done absolutely nothing other than just a cursory walkthrough of the crime scene, I had only been there approximately 30 minutes and had done virtually nothing as far as that crime scene was concerned. Then yes, it was my responsibility to pull my people out so robbery homicide would have as clean and untouched crime scene as possible to begin their investigation.
Now, what about this reassignment to robbery homicide division? This was a case in West LA, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And it was reassigned to robbery homicide division?
Yes, it was.
Has that ever happened before?
Overruled.
Yes, it has.
And why, on previous occasions, has it happened, if you know?
Overruled.
That each case has its own merit. Some of the cases are taken away from us after the preliminary crime scene is done. Some of them are taken away from us 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks after the crime occurs. Some are taken away immediately.
I don't think the question was when. I think the question was why, wasn't it?
Yes, it was why. Thank you, Your Honor.
Let's, different crime scenes are taken away from us for different reasons.
In this particular case, what was the reason?
Haven't we talked about this already?
Have we?
Covered this already.
I thought so.
Have we?
More resources?
That was one, was that the reason?
Yes?
I won't ask again. Okay. And has that been a reason in previous cases as well, why cases have been reassigned to robbery homicide?
It's irrelevant to this case.
How'd you feel about losing this case to another set of detectives, sir?
Didn't bother me at all. I mean, I was disappointed in the fact that we had all gotten up after an hour and a half sleep, and we'd gone out there and we'd had an investigation that we were going to take part in. But it certainly, at the time, appeared to me to be the correct call. I had no problem with it, and in fact, agreed with it.
All right, so there you were on the scene. You said you got there at about 2:10 in the morning. When you first arrived at the scene, did you call the coroner?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because that's not what I do, and that's not generally what is done when you first arrive at the crime scene. You first arrive at the crime scene and you talk, did not.
I said, why not?
Why not? He can explain the answer. Overruled.
You have to originally find out what you have, and whether suspect's in custody, not in custody, find out just about the crime scene itself, find out a little bit about the deceased, find out about your crime scene, walk through your crime scene, see what kind of evidence you have. There's a lot of different things that you have to get in your own mind before you even start to figure out what you're going to do.
And why is that? Why do you
Yeah.
need to know more about your crime scene and examine everything before you have the coroner in there?
Well, you have to have a plan of action. Number one, what you're going to do, and once the coroner gets there, if you're not ready for the coroner is going to stand around doing nothing until you are ready for him, because you're certainly not going to allow the coroner into a crime scene until you're through measuring every item, photographing every item, fingerprinting every item, examining everything you have at your crime scene before you ever allow the coroner in there, and that could take hours before you ever have time or ever able to do that.
That's a good explanation.
So, so if the coroner gets in there, could evidence be moved or lost that before it gets a chance to be documented?
Well, it could be. We would never let the coroner in until we were through with our initial crime scene, until we were through with our crime scene,
For that reason?
for that exact reason.
Now, whose duty is it to notify the coroner to arrive at the scene?
In
general?
In general, at a homicide scene, it's the homicide investigator who's assigned to that crime would be the one that notifies the coroner.
Now, about what time was it that you the final word that the case was going to be reassigned to Robbery Homicide Division?
I believe it was 2:39 in the morning of June 13th.
And at some point, did you attempt to, or ask permission to make notification to the coroner?
Yes, I did.
At what time?
It was about 10 minutes or 5 minutes to 3 that morning. I made a statement that I was going to notify the coroner.
And who did you make that statement to, sir?
Lieutenant Spangler, my commanding officer.
And what was his response to that?
Overruled.
Told me not to.
And why not?
That's hearsay.
He gave you, but I take it he gave you a reason.
Yes, he did. He gave me an order.
And what did you do after you received that order, sir?
I did not call the coroner.
Okay. And what did you do?
Went out to Bundy and Dorothy and waited for the arrival of the robbery homicide detectives.
Who were the robbery homicide detectives assigned to the case?
Phil Van Adder and Tom Lang.
Prior to that night, sir, had you ever met them before?
Never met either one of those detectives before.
So that was the first time you ever saw them.
That's correct.
Who got there first?
Phil Van Adder.
Chicken.
And when he got there, did you have a conversation with him?
Yes, I did.
In general terms, did you tell him what you had seen at the crime scene
Yes.
and what you had learned from the first officer on the scene?
Yes.
And then what did you do?
I took Phil Van Adder up to the crime scene, the same route that I had been taken up to prior, and showed him the bodies.
Now, when you had the conversation with Lieutenant Spangler, was Detective Furman with you?
In regards to the coroner's office?
Right.
No, I believe he was inside the house when that was going on.
With the uniformed officer?
Yes.
And then when you were waiting for the robbery homicide detectives to show up, was he with you then?
Yes, he was.
Out in the intersection?
Yes.
And when Phil Van Adder appeared, was Detective Furman with you there in the intersection?
Yes.
And when you took Detective Van Adder up to the Bundy crime scene, did Detective Furman go with you?
Yes, he did.
Can you describe for us the path?
Guys, I am beyond waiting for Furman to get on the stand, and we're still in February. We still have to get to March.
that you took with Detective Van Adder and Detective Furman?
Oh, no, we're with Van Adder now.
The exact same route that I had taken with Officer Risky before,
Meaning,
across the sidewalk into the planted area where the bushes and leaves and grass is, and up to that corner spot, and viewed the bodies.
did you point things out to Detective Van Adder?
Yes, I did.
And just to save us some time, you pointed out the same evidence to him that you've described seeing to us.
Yes.
Then what did you do?
I exited that location the same way, and then walked Van Adder around to the rear of 875 South Bundy.
And at the rear of the location, what did you do there?
Showed him the Jeep, the change, and the blood drop, and then entered into the garage, went into the residence, walked out the front door, stood in the exact same location I'd stood before, and showed him the crime scene from up above the 3 steps.
And did you point out the evidence from that vantage point as well?
Yes, I did.
Then what'd you do?
Then walked him westbound through the north walkway to the rear of the residence, the same route that I had taken prior, pointing out the shoe prints and pointing out the blood drops.
And again, did you take care not to step in those blood drops and shoe prints?
Yes, I did.
And when you got to the rear gate area, after you walked to the end of the walkway, did you point anything out at that location?
Yes, I pointed out the 3 areas on the gate that had been pointed out to me where blood was.
Okay, and were you and Detective Furman and Van Adder all walking together along that walkway?
We were walking in single file.
Did you walk out the rear gate at that point?
Yes.
Where'd you go then?
Went back out to Bundy and Dorothy.
Did you point out the bloody paw prints going south on Bundy from the front walkway and around to the corner of Dorothy to Detective Van Adder?
Yes, I did.
And then what did you do?
We stood in that intersection again, waiting for his partner to show up, Detective Tom Lang, who showed up approximately 25 minutes later.
And where did he contact you, sir?
At Dorothy and Bundy in the middle of the intersection.
What did you do when Detective Lang arrived?
First of all, he walked up to his partner, Van Adder. They had a short conversation, and then Van Adder pointed out me to him and introduced me to him and said that Phillips can fill you in on what happened and also walk you through the crime scene.
Okay. And is that what you did?
Yes?
Did you take Detective Lang up through the same steps that you've just described with Detective Van Adder?
The exact same steps.
So then when you went out the rear gate with Detective Lang, did you take him back into the residence again?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when you did that, where in the house did you take him?
Took him throughout the residence that I had gone through and showed him the master bedroom and the master bath and the kids' bedrooms and the living room, and pointed out the candles to him.
And then did you exit the residence with him?
Yes?
Okay. Now that walkthrough that you took him on through the interior of the house, was that meant to be a detailed investigation at that point?
No, it was a very cursory, quick walkthrough just to give them an overview of what I had been told, what I had seen myself.
And by what means did you exit the residence at that time?
Exited through the garage and out into the alley again.
Where'd you go then?
Back out to Bundy and Dorothy.
And when you got out to Dorothy and Bundy, who did you see?
Well, there was several police officers out there. It was kind of a grouping of individuals, command staff, supervisors, detectives. Everybody was just kind of gathered around right there.
And who did you specifically go to see at that point?
Well, at that time, I took Lang back to his partner, Van Adder, who was standing there with Furman.
Did you have a discussion at that point?
Well, at that time, the four of us kind of broke away from that group and walked over to the front of the Bundy location out in the middle of the street and viewed the crime scene from out in the middle of the street. I think Van Adder and Lang were asking us a couple of questions about the call across the street, the 459 call, and I believe I pointed out the house where that call had come from and the house just north of that, giving them another overview of where locations were and where people lived.
Did you want to take the break now?
We're going to go straight through. Ladies and gentlemen, the plan today, since we're breaking early at 4 o'clock, is to go straight through to 4 o'clock. However, if there's a need to stop, feel free to raise your hand and let me know. All right. Ms. Clark.
Some water.
Oh, poor OJ. Are you tired? Is this tiresome for you?
All right, so you had a discussion of the four of you about the crime scene, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then what else did you talk about?
Then I believe that I brought up the fact that I had been told earlier in the evening that I was to notify O.J. Simpson of the death of Nicole Brown and that we had his children and I was to do that in person. And I'd received that order from Commander Bushy.
Now, in the West LA division where you work, sir, are there a lot of wealthy and famous people there?
Yes?
Have you been requested to give VIP treatment before?
Just an object, that's simple fact of it. This is the activity. We approach them.
Sure.
You know, we can't complain. This is only the second sidebar. It's been an hour. We can complain. Never mind.
All right, thank you, counsel. Ms. Clark, would you proceed, please?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Notifications.
Right, thank you, Your Honor. Detective Phillips. Have you been requested to give VIP treatment before, sir?
Yes?
And tell us what is meant by that.
Well, it's a little bit extra that the police department does. We have a lot of individuals in West Los Angeles Division that celebrity, VIPs, wealthy people. Sometimes their name comes across and the department does certain things to, you know, to help them out or do certain things a little bit more than on a normal occasion.
On how many occasions have you been requested by Commander Bushy to make personal notification to the next of kin in a homicide case?
This would be the first time.
Now, you're a homicide detective, is that right?
Yes.
Is there a policy with respect to how notifications to next of kin are supposed to be made?
Yes.
And what is that policy?
Policy is that whenever practical, the homicide investigator assigned to the case should notify the next of kin if the next of kin lives in the area that the homicide occurred. If they do not live in that area and they live outside the area, then a police officer from that adjoining area would make that notification. And if it's out of state, then we'd make inquiries to that jurisdiction to make notifications then.
All right. Is it done is it the policy to make those notifications in person or by telephone?
Whenever possible, is to be done in person.
And why is that?
Well, I think it's a courteous thing to do that the police department tries to do instead of making a phone call and telling somebody that somebody's dead. We try to do it this way. It doesn't always work that way, but we try.
So why is it so unusual that Commander Bushy told you to make the notification to the defendant in person?
It's not unusual that we were making the notification. It's unusual that the commander gave me a direct order that I should do everything I could to find Mr. Simpson and notify him in person before the news media became aware of what happened out at that residence. He thought it would be very insensitive if we knew about it and did not notify him in person prior to the news media notifying him.
Now, at the time that you informed Detective Lang and Detective Van Atta that you were going to go out to notify the defendant, was there some decision or discussion concerning whether they would go with you or not?
Well, it was kind of a conversation. Yes, it was a conversation that took part, and this was all part of the same conversation. We were all talking at one time.
And what was discussed about that?
Well, I was making the statement that I need to go up and notify O.J. Simpson, if I can, about this death.
Hey, Bill, guess what? I had someone that worked at Burger King in my street, too. Yep, we're twinsies.
And they were making the statement, well, we should probably go up and talk to O.J. Simpson at the same time and get a statement from him, or maybe he can give us some information. And it was determined that since they were the investigating officers on the scene, and they were the ones that were going to do the investigation, that they should be the ones that talked to O.J. Simpson. And after he was talked to, then I would take it from there.
All right, so did you want the Detectives Lang and Van Atta to go along because they were thinking you were all just considering the defendant to be a suspect at that time?
No, we never considered Mr. Simpson to be a suspect at that time.
What was the information that everybody was thinking he could give?
Sustained.
They were what did you think he could give? What information did you think Mr. Simpson could give at that time?
Well, for one thing, we had a body there that we had no idea who that was. That was a male body there. We didn't know if Mr. Simpson had any knowledge of Mrs. Simpson's whereabouts the night before, if he could give us some information on who this person was. As far as we knew, the individual that was lying there could have as easily been a suspect. We had no idea who this individual was.
So then were arrangements made to go to the defendant's home?
Yes, there was.
How did you find out where that was?
I believe Detective Furman asked Officer Risky
He went down to the corner and bought one of those maps of the stars.
to run the Jeep at the rear of the residence to see what address it came back to.
And what address did it come back to?
360 Rockingham.
So how did you decide to proceed to 360 Rockingham?
360.
360.
Yes. Detective Furman and I went in our car, and Detective Van Atter and Lang went in their car. And we went first to basically cut down the time and show them what the quickest route to that location was.
So you went in two separate cars?
Yes, there was a reason for that.
And what was the reason for that?
Well, Van Atter and Lang were going to return as soon as they talked to Mr. Simpson. Furman and I were going to stay at the Simpson residence, and my theory, along with after talking to Lieutenant Spangler before we left this location, was that we were going to offer Mr. Simpson a ride, if possible, if he wanted it, back to West LA Station to pick up his children. There was a possibility he may have been too upset to drive, or that we should have allowed him to drive. I did not want Mr. Simpson going back to the Bundy location to see the scene, so I was going to do whatever I could to keep him from going to Bundy. So I was going to offer Mr. Simpson my services, my police vehicle, until he got some support, or at least we got his children back to him.
Why did you want to keep him from the Bundy scene?
Objection. That's very clear.
Overruled.
Well, I didn't want Mr. Simpson going back to see the very bloody crime scene. I had no idea at that time the relationship between Mr. Simpson and Nicole Brown.
So you wanted to prevent him from the trauma of seeing that?
No objections.
Sustained. Leading.
Sorry. Did you have some concern for Mr. Simpson's welfare in going back to the 875 South Bundy scene?
Pleading suggested.
Overruled.
Yes,
And what was that concern?
I did not want him to have to face and see that scene, which was a very bloody scene, a very traumatic scene.
So you took 2 cars,
That's correct?
and you were the lead, you said?
Yes.
And why were you leading?
Detective Furman knew the way.
Had one of the other officers at the scene told Detective Furman how to get there that night?
That's also
Sustained.
Before you left, did Detective Furman say he was going to go and ask for directions?
hearsay.
Sustained.
Under,
Sustained.
I can't give a theory. I have a theory.
I
Okay.
thought of the theory, I've sustained it.
Still hearsay.
Sustained. You're welcome.
I haven't tried.
Sustained.
Okay. Okay, so you and Detective Furman led, and then Detective Van Adder and Detective Lang followed in their car.
Yes.
About how long did it take you to get to the location of 360 Rockingham from 875 South Bundy?
No more than 5 minutes.
What time, back up, I forgot to ask you something. What time did Detective Van Adder get to the location of 875 South Bundy that night?
I believe he arrived at 4:25 or 4:30 in the morning.
And Detective Lang?
I'm sorry, Detective
If he got there at 4:30, he would have missed my stream. How dare he?
Van Adder arrived at 4:05. I'm sorry, Detective Lang arrived at 4:25 to 4:30.
And what time did you leave 875 South Bundy?
Just shortly before 5 in the morning.
And what time did you arrive at 360 North Rockingham?
Approximately 5:05, 5:10.
Now, when the 4 of you left 875 South Bundy, did you tell anyone about it, or did you just pack up and go?
No, I had walked over to Lieutenant Spangler and John Rogers and informed them of where we were going and what we were doing, and told them that we should be back in a very short time, and I informed Lieutenant Spangler of my intentions of offering my services to O.J. Simpson.
And you spoke to Lieutenant Rogers as well then?
Well, he was standing in the area. I wasn't speaking directly at him. I was speaking directly at Lieutenant Spangler.
When you left, who was in charge of the crime scene at 875 South Bundy?
Lieutenant Rogers.
Did you have any conversation with Lieutenant Rogers about what he would do with the crime scene in your absence?
No.
And did you see Detective Furman go over to ask for directions from another officer there?
Object on this. Same question.
Sustained.
Did you see Detective Furman go over to Officer Risky at some point?
Yes.
And was that just before you left for 360 North Rockingham?
A few minutes before, yes.
After Detective Furman spoke to Officer Risky, did he come back to you?
Yes,
Did he give you some information?
yes,
And did that concern the route you would take to 360 North Rockingham?
Sustained. Sustained. Sustained.
Can we approach?
Sure.
So tomorrow we should do not a shot at every sidebar, a full beer, one full beer every sidebar.
All right, Ms. Clark, would you allow the court reporter to change paper?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. This is the delay tactic by the court reporter.
Madam Reporter? All right, Ms. Clark. Certainly.
Your Honor, I have here a board containing 6 photographs. Ask that the board be marked. I'm sorry, Your Honor, next in order.
People 62.
62.
All right, 62. And Ms. Clark, would you have your assistants put on letters on any remaining so we can avoid the confusion?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
If I may, for the time being, simply indicate, Your Honor, what they are.
Certainly.
As for the top 3, starting from the left over A, B, and C, and then beginning from the lower left-hand corner, D, E, and F.
That was 62.
62. People 62. A through F.
All right, sir, what route did you take to get to 360 North Rockingham?
went north on Bundy, and then on Kenter, I believe it was, to Sunset, made a left on Sunset, traveled westbound on Sunset to Rockingham, and turned northbound on Rockingham.
And when you went northbound on Rockingham, what did you see?
As we approached the 360 North Rockingham address, I observed a white vehicle parked on the east curb facing north.
And what kind of vehicle was that you saw?
It was a white Ford Bronco.
Directing your attention, sir, to the photographs that are now marked as 62A through F. Can you tell me if you recognize what's shown there?
Yes, that appears to be the white vehicle that I saw parked in the location where it was parked at.
And can you see what, no, never mind. Did you notice that right away when you started to drive north on Rockingham, that vehicle?
I just noticed the vehicle there because I pulled in kind of in front of the vehicle and made a right-hand turn onto Ashford and parked my vehicle, so I had to pay attention to it. But it just had to pay attention to it as I drove up.
And why did you have to pay attention to it?
So I wouldn't hit it.
Let me ask you about that. Rockingham, is that a real wide street?
Overruled. Anybody who drives in Southern California knows the difference. Besides, the jury has been there.
Is that a very wide street?
It's not a real wide street, no.
Where did you park?
I parked on Ashford just after I made the right off of Rockingham onto Ashford on the south curb of Ashford.
Are these going to be Rockingham photos?
Your Honor, may this photograph be marked People's 63?
All right, people, next in order, 63.
You recognize what's shown in that photograph, sir?
Yes, that's the O.J. Simpson residence.
You said that you parked on the, around the corner from the Bronco.
Yes,
Can you tell us approximately where you parked in this photograph? Can you show us, that is?
right about in that location there,
Right there?
right there.
And do you recall where Detective Lang and Detective Van Adder parked?
They were cornered the main out to the witness.
Yes.
I don't recall where they parked.
And when you got there, so did you and Detective Furman get out?
Yes,
And what happened next?
the four of us walked up to the Ashford gate, and I believe that I was the first one to push the intercom buzzer to try and raise someone in the residence.
Now, when you went to the Ashford gate, sir, let me ask you this. The gate, was it covered with any kind of material?
No, it was just a wrought iron gate.
Okay. In the photograph next to you that's been marked as 62D, that'd be the lower left-hand photograph.
Yes.
Can you tell us what gate is depicted in that photograph?
That would be the Rockingham gate.
And does that depict the gate in the condition you saw it on June the 13th?
Yes,
The vehicle that's depicted in these photographs, A through E, is that the vehicle that you've described having seen on parked just north of the Rockingham gate at 360 North Rockingham?
yes,
And the position in which it's parked in these photographs, is that the position in which you saw it parked in the early morning hours of June the 13th?
yes.
We're printing that, right?
Your Honor, may the print of the image be marked as 63A?
63A.
Your Honor, may this next image be marked People's Exhibit 64?
64 next in order.
Okay, sir, do you recognize what's shown in that photograph?
Yes, that's the Simpson residence, and I believe that that would be the Ashford gate.
And is that the gate that you just described that the four of you walked up to?
Yes,
Is it in the condition in which you saw it on June the 13th, 1994?
yes.
From where was it, if you can tell us, and if you can see in this photograph, where was it that you went to try and make contact with the house?
Well, there's a speaker box, intercom system, just to the left of the driveway as you walk up, right about where those bushes are, that you push a button and hopefully somebody talks to you.
Can you tell us where it is in this photograph?
It's right about where the white flowers there, the white plants are, right about in a little bit left, right about in that area there.
What kind of plants are they? Can you tell by the size of the plants approximately when they were planted? Do you know if these particular flowers were there last year?
Okay.
Who waters the flowers?
Is that it? What's been circled?
Okay, the witness circled before Mr. Purple.
Is there a possibility we can get a telestrator up here on the witness stand?
We can, but it's really it's not easy to use, Your Honor. I mean, we'd have to teach the witnesses first. Because you don't see an image here, it's blank. You have to look at the screen.
I
and
don't really
coordinate.
see it. I know where it's located, but I don't really see it in this photograph.
Okay, but that was the, can you direct the pointer down to the general location where you remember it being?
He indicated it was above the white bush.
Mm-hmm. Can we put an X there then? Is that it?
It's somewhere in that vicinity right there.
No, let's try this again. How about we just put an arrow on the bush?
Yeah.
That's the white bush, it's above the white bush. Just
Okay,
leave,
and
just
leave
an
it.
A
arrow.
little more left.
A little more left?
Yeah.
All right,
All right,
in
just
that
leave the
area.
arrow there. Can we leave the arrow there? Perfect.
all right. Can we put initials on it?
Some of this whiz bang stuff has too much whiz.
It does, it does. All right, so when you went to press the buzzer, sir, could you hear it buzzing?
Yes.
And did you get any answer?
No.
How many times did you buzz that buzzer?
Several times in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Not myself as being the only one that did it. Several of the other officers also pushed it.
So how many officers were there?
4.
Did they all run away after they pushed it and hid behind one of those bushes? Hi, Nancy.
Now, when you went to press the buzzer, where did Detective Van Atter and Lang go?
We all stood right there for the first couple of minutes, hoping that someone would acknowledge
ran.
us.
And at some point, did you fan out?
Yes.
Who went where?
I believe I walked back to my car and got my cellular telephone.
And what about Detective Lang? Where did he go?
Don't recall where he went.
What about Detective Furman? Do you know where he went?
I don't recall where they went. Everybody was talking and pushing buzzers and going different locations, and I went back to get my cellular phone. I was going to call the watch commander.
How far apart did you spread out?
Well, to be honest with you, I really wasn't paying attention to what each one of us was doing at that time.
Next question.
What were you doing?
I went back to my car to get my cellular telephone,
And for what purpose did you do that?
call the watch commander,
Why?
because I'd noticed a West Tech sign in the front yard, and I thought perhaps West Tech might be able to assist us in raising somebody at that location or giving us a phone number of someone at that location.
And so you called the watch commander?
I called Sergeant Rossi at the West Los Angeles Watch Commander's office.
Silver Fox.
Can you have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
When she comes back, I hope she asks him what he did at the car. Because we don't know. I don't remember if they brought it up in chat or
Do you happen
both.
to have
I don't
memorized
remember.
the phone
We
number
brought it up
that,
in chat.
for the watch commander that you used that night?
Yes?
Do you use it often?
Yes?
Show you a phone number that has been written down previously and marked as People 61 and ask you if you recognize the phone number
Yes, that's the inside private line.
for the watch commander.
Yes.
And is that the phone number that you dialed that night on your cell phone?
Yes, it is.
You spoke to Sergeant Rossi?
Yes?
Did you ask him to do something?
Yes?
What?
I asked him to get a hold of West Tech Security and asked them if they could assist us in raising someone at that residence, getting a phone number for us at that residence, possibly getting a key for us at that residence, and also telling us if they had any information whether the people that were at that residence were out of town for an extended period of time or not.
And did you receive word back from Sergeant Rossi
Yes, I did.
after I made that request of him?
Yes.
And did he give you some information?
Yes.
Based on what he told you, what did you do?
Based on what he told me, I didn't get the information that I requested, other than the fact that I'd learned that there was no record of anybody being out of town. So I asked them to send a unit, a West Tech unit, to our location.
And then,
Your Honor, was struck by the last Simpson.
Overruled.
what happened next?
A short time later, after a couple more phone calls were made, a West Tech unit was driving southbound on Rockingham, and I flagged him down in the middle of Rockingham and Ashford.
Stop. Hold on. Okay. What did he just say? So he's at O.J. Simpson's house. He needs a West Tech person. And there happens to be one driving down the street at God knows what time in the morning. And he knows this car is coming in enough time for him to get out and flag him down. Or is this someone that they knew was coming, so he was standing there ready? Because there's no freaking way there was an employee just driving down that street at that time of the night, and he was able to get out into the street and flag him down. He had to know.
And did you go and talk to that person?
Yes, I did.
Did you make some request of him?
Originally, I asked him if he was the unit that had responded to our call, and he did not know what call I was referring to. And then I asked him, I said, do you have a phone number, or can you get me a phone number to this residence?
Lies.
And he made an inquiry and then told me that he could not,
Overruled.
And it's
told me he
lies.
could not do that for security reasons.
What was your response to that?
I informed him that I was a Los Angeles police detective, that I was investigating a crime, and that I wanted the phone number of that residence, and if
What's like a national security company? Select? Do you guys have Select Security where you are? Or Yarnell? Select Security. Okay. I don't know what security systems you guys have around you, but I feel like there's a big one that I'm missing, and I don't know who it is. All right, ACT. There we go. How often do you see an ACT driver just driving down any street, not just your street? Maybe once in a while you'll ADT. Maybe once in a while you'll see maybe. So what are the possible chances an ADD driver is driving down your street at a double murder early in the morning, and you are trying to get in and you're able to flag them down? You would have to be at the street to flag them down. You would have to know they were coming because they go past you. It's not possible. It's just not, what he just said is not possible.
If he couldn't give it to me, then to get a supervisor out here that could.
What happened next?
Short time.
We should all go outside real quick and see if we can flag down an ADT car. No, don't. Drunken, don't you go outside. Do not.
Time later, the West Tech officer gave me the phone number to the residence.
And who did you get it from? Do you
Nope.
remember?
I
I'm
got
not
it from
getting
that
there drunken.
same
I
West
can't
Tech
make it
officer that I
there.
had flagged down that was still at the location.
Now, at the time that you got the phone number, did that West Tech patrol officer stay there?
Yes, he did.
And when you got the phone number, did another West Tech unit arrive?
Shortly thereafter, a West Tech supervisor, a sergeant from West Tech, showed up.
What did you do after you got the defendant's phone number?
I phoned the residence.
Now, at some point, did Detective Furman come and report some observation he had made to you?
Yes, he did.
Was that before or after you got the defendant's phone number?
Okay. All right. Let's go with that. Let's just say you're right. And there is a mysterious ADT driver driving around that neighborhood at that early in the morning, all right? How does he flag him down? How does he's at the gate trying to get into the gate, ringing the buzzer, trying to find someone. He goes to his car, he calls on his cellular phone. How does he accidentally see an ADT driver driving down the street to wave him down? Even if they were prominent in the neighborhood, how does he know there's one coming to drive to? Yeah, but okay. So what you're saying is, if he steps out in the middle of traffic to wave him down, then he's not at the scene. He's not in his car. He's standing near the road watching the traffic coming by. He's not watching the house to see if he can get in. He's not seeing if someone's coming out. He's not looking through the window to see if there's movement. He's standing there watching the road and watching the traffic? No. No, he's looking for OJ.
That was before I got the phone number.
And what was the
If they're marked, okay. They're marked on the side. How does he see that from the crime scene? Until it gets to the crime scene and passing it, how does it see it? He has to be at the road, watching the road. I don't know. I cannot get there.
observation that you...
Sustain.
Okay. Did he make some remark to you about something he had seen?
Overruled.
Yes,
And based on what he told you, sir, did you go and observe something?
yes.
What was that?
I observed a spot on the Bronco on the driver's door, just above the door handle, that was a brownish red small dot,
And directing your attention, sir, to the photographs that have been marked as people 62, B, and C. Do you see what's being shown in those photographs?
yes.
What?
It's a man pointing to a spot on the driver's door, and then it's a close-up of what he's pointing to with a figure of number 1 in his hand, numeral number 1.
Is that the location in which you saw the spot that you've just indicated you saw that night?
Yes,
Yeah, I can't get there either. That tiny little brown spot, he thought was blood. Okay, he's a detective. I get it. No, I can't get there either. I just can't.
And did you make that observation before or after you got the defendant's phone number?
before.
Did you call the phone number that you were given for the defendant?
Yes,
And how soon after receiving the phone number did you call?
within a
The car is parked horribly badly on the road. The car is on the road.
couple of minutes. It just, however long it took me to put in the cellular phone and send it.
And where was everybody when you made that phone call?
Watching the traffic.
Walking around between the Bronco, the Ashford gate, I was kind of left out by myself talking to the West Tech officer and using my telephone.
And where was the West Tech officer?
He was parked in the middle of the street on Rockingham, facing southbound, almost into the intersection of Ashford, just north of the intersection of Ashford.
Have you on the image of the screen be marked as People's Exhibit 64A?
Right. People 64A.
No, he parks badly on the street.
Your Honor, this is People 63.
Going back to this, you indicated that the other detectives were between the Ashford gate and the Bronco.
Yes,
Do you see that location depicted in this photograph, sir? That area?
yes,
On the left-hand side of the photograph, do you see the location of the Ashford Gate?
yes.
Can you direct the pointer to that area, please?
To the pointer at the Ashford
To the
Gate?
Ashford Gate.
Okay.
Let's put the... Get the... Okay. Tell it where to go.
That's the Ashford Gate.
Okay. Can you make a small X there? Is that correct, sir?
That's the Ashford Gate, yes.
Okay. And in this photograph, where the Bronco would be?
It's completely to the right side of the picture. You can just barely see the front end of it,
That white spot?
right?
Make an X. Or, yeah, why don't we just leave the arrow there? Thank you, Jonathan. Initial that. And where were you?
Well, it'd have to find out what time.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're talking about the time when you're talking to, getting the phone number of the defendant and using your cell phone to call.
Well, I was more or less in the middle of the intersection, making phone calls to Sergeant Rossi, talking to the West Tech officer. When the West Tech officer showed up, he was southbound on Rockingham, had just entered the intersection of Ashford and Rockingham, had not gone all the way through it.
Can you direct that cross to that location?
That would be an approximate location. I mean, depth perception is the only thing that's lacking, but that'd be close.
Okay. Thank you. Then using your cell phone, you made the call to the defendant's residence. Is that right, sir?
Yes.
After another board, Your Honor.
Ten minutes. There's only 18 people in here, though. You don't have to change your time. I mean, there's hardly anybody in here.
Great chart now that's been marked as People 65. Can you tell us if you recognize what is shown in this chart?
That's a photocopy of my phone bill, a cellular phone that I was using that night for the date of 6/12 to 6/13/94.
And that's the cell phone you were using on the date of June the 13th, 1994?
Yes.
And do you see a phone call at the time of 5:36 a.m. for June the 13th made from your cell phone to the number 310-476-4619?
Yes.
And now it's being shown up on the screen. I'm going to indicate that with the laser. If you could see it, can you see it, sir?
Yes.
Do you see what I'm indicating on the screen there for the jury?
Yes.
So at 5:36, you called this number 310-476-4619.
Yes.
And where did you get that phone number from?
That's the phone number I received from the West Tech officer.
When you dialed that number, what happened?
I received a recording, answering machine recording.
And what it said? What did the answering machine say? Sorry.
I don't recall exactly what it said, but it made reference to the fact of, hello, this is OJ, I'm not home.
No, that's not what I said at all. I said they walked by this car and said, "Oh my God, there's blood on the door." There was a tiny little speck. I'm like, okay, there's blood on this. The other guy in the preliminary hearings, he said that he stopped at that place not because of Nicole Brown and the murders, not at all. He stopped at that residence, the police officer at that time, because the car was parked so badly. His butt was hanging out into the street, which it wasn't. And then he said, and he noticed there was blood on the door from that little speck. I mean, I don't know. That's what they said. They said they were driving by. The police said they were driving by. The car was parked so badly that they stopped to look, and then they saw that blood on the door.
Leave a message, something to that effect.
So you got an answering machine.
Yes.
Did you inform anyone of that, of the fact that you got an answering machine, no one answered the phone?
Yes, I informed the other detectives at the scene that no one answered, that there was an answering service.
Now, did the West Tech, okay, thank you. Did the West Tech supervisor remain there for a period of time while you were there?
Yes, he did. Both West Tech units stayed there for a little bit of time.
And did someone, one of the detectives, have a conversation with West Tech about whether or not a maid was supposed to be on the premises?
Yes,
And did you learn anything about that, sir?
yes,
What did you find out?
Sustained.
You and the other detectives learned something about a maid being on the premises, is that right?
yes,
Did you then have a conversation?
Oh, well, proceed.
Did you then have a conversation amongst you, or did Detective Van Adder, Detective Lang, Detective Furman have a conversation about what they were going to do next?
yes, I was just separate from the group.
The answer is yes or no. Yes,
Yes.
for the conversation. Next question.
And after that conversation, sir, what happened next?
Detective Furman went over the wall of the Rockingham residence.
Was that at someone's request?
Yes,
Whose?
Van Adder or Lang, I believe it was Van Adder.
And what happened next?
Detective Furman then opened the gate from the inside and allowed the other ones of us in.
Pupils P64, Your Honor.
Again, that's the gate you've identified as the...
OJ was the spokesman for Hertz. So his Bronco was owned by Hertz.
Ashford Gate, is that the one you all went through?
Yes,
And do you recall seeing, well, do you tell us, what did you see when you first went inside?
we first went inside, we walked up to the front door.
Did you see any dogs there?
Well, after we got to the front door, we saw this dog walk.
What you saw, Your Honor.
This is what I saw.
Yes.
I saw this dog walking out of what appeared to be the backyard, and the four of us started backing out of the yard.
Why's that?
Had no idea what the dog was going to do.
Did it attack you?
No,
What color was that dog?
it was all black.
What did you do at the front door?
Well, the dog then laid down. So we went over and knocked on the front door and rang the doorbell.
Did you get any answer?
No,
Great watchdog.
Yeah. Fierce. Did anybody ring the doorbell?
yes,
And did you get an answer to that?
no.
What happened next?
After receiving no answer, then we walked around to the location where the dog was now laying and walked around the dog and into the backyard.
Now, were you able to see any lights on in the house before you got inside the property?
Yes.
Where?
The only light that I observed was a light upstairs in the center portion of the residence. That's the only light I observed myself.
I'm sorry?
That's the only light I observed myself.
And again, before going onto the property, were you able to see any cars in the driveway?
I believe I saw one black vehicle in the driveway, yes.
Now, after having rung the doorbell and knocked on the door and gotten no answer, what happened next?
I walked around to the back, to the south side of the to the north side of the residence, past the dog and into the backyard to where there was a pool area.
And what did you see there?
Saw the pool, the back of the house, and as I walked closer, we saw some what looked like little cottages or extensions of the house on the south side of the property.
Did you have your flashlights with you?
We had them originally, but at this time it had gotten light.
It was what time then?
Just shortly before 6.
How long after you called the defendant and got no answer on his residence phone did you actually wind up entering the property?
I would say 5 minutes, 6, 7 minutes, somewhere in that vicinity.
So be roughly about 5:41, 5:42.
Roughly.
Were you able to see the grounds in the backyard when you were walking through it and the pool area?
Yes?
Did you see anybody injured?
No?
Were you looking to see that?
Yes?
What were you looking around for? Why'd you go on the property?
We were looking around to see if we could...
Sustain. Detective, the question is just what were you doing? Why were you there? Not we.
I was looking, I had been informed of the possible blood spot on the bronc.
Overruled. The question was why did you go on the property?
The response was, we've been informed.
Right, which is why I told him to tell us what he did and why he did it, not what we did or why we did it. Do we understand the question?
Oh, why don't we, I'll start over, please.
Okay. Ms. Clark.
You know, may I have a moment, Your Honor? So you were on the grounds and you saw the, like a row of guest units?
Yes?
And where were those guest units in relationship to the main house?
They were at the rear of the house, running along the south end of the property, going east away from the main house.
Visitation in the FBI, the monitoring issue.
Well, yeah, Mr. Harmon, are you ready to address that matter?
Okay, it looks like tomorrow we skip to the future. Looks like someone else is questioning him now. All right, guys, we made it through 2, so we're catching up a little bit. Oh, thank you so much for coming out today. I really, really, really appreciate it. Debbie's stream starts now, so hop over, and I will see you all very soon. Bye, guys.